Well, welcome to the Money Money Tip Podcast presented by Fully Funded Life. My name is Joe Stengel. We're fired up to help you live your life fully funded. I'm joined as always by my co-host, Megan Hibbert. Are you fired up?
Fired up. Episode 342.
342.
And today we are talking about personal finance tips versus reality.
Oh, so there's a lot of people out there on social media, Megan. They're giving us all the tips. They're telling us all the stuff that works. Do this. This is the hack.
Yeah.
Listen, this is how you get views. You share hacks. You share tips. You share secrets that they don't want you to know about. Yeah. So we all have tried financial tips that sound great in principle, but it didn't work out.
Yep.
Kind of like, you should live and operate by a budget. Yeah, I tried that. That didn't work. Well, in this episode, we're going to be separating effective strategies from the overhyped stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mainly because personal finance is not a one-size-fits-all.
It isn't?
Surprisingly, it's unique and personal to you. And so it often works for somebody, does not work.
That's why when you go into a clothing store, they have different sizes. Right? So me and my twin could share clothes growing up. We didn't even know whose was whose half the time because we're the exact same size, right? And so that's a beautiful benefit. But you know what? Personal finance, it's not one size fits all. And so we're going to give some good, bad, and overhyped stuff. And tip number one, common personal finance tip. This has been popularized by somebody. I'll share in a minute. I want you to share the tip, though.
Yep. So the first one is cut out daily coffee.
What?
I know. I can't.
Do what?
I cannot do that.
What are you talking about? How did this make the cut? We're going to talk about cutting out the daily coffee? Is that really a good tip?
They're talking about going out for coffee.
Well, the reality is that small savings help, but focusing only on tiny expenses won't build wealth. You know what? I know who would argue with this. David Bach. He wrote a book called The Latte Factor. It's talking about how you stopping and picking up a daily coffee at Starbucks, that if you invested that, it actually becomes ginormous amounts of money over time.
Yeah.
And so it is a great tip. And what does work, of course, is to identify significant areas like your housing, structurally changing that, transportation, and subscriptions for meaningful cuts. But listen, there is such a thing as having that one little habit every day. Of course, you could cut it out. Of course, you could invest it. The point is that you don't cut it out forever.
Yeah.
You cut it out for a little while. We want you to have enjoyment of life for now, but while preparing for the future.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole point.
Yeah. We drink coffee at home most of the time. We'll go to Starbucks if we have a gift card.
You're drinking $1 million. That's
Coffee?
That's what they're saying when you drink daily coffee.
But not when you buy a pound of coffee from Aldi for $4.
Aldi coffee?
Aldi coffee.
Is it good?
It is good, yeah.
Well, I use K-Cups 3 times. Does that count?
That's disgusting.
So here's what I know. When I drink a cup of coffee in the morning, I feel like $1 million. How about you?
The first K-Cup or the third?
The third K-Cup is after the second. And it is hot barbecue water is what it is. It's like somebody cleaned the barbecue grill and heated it up with hot water. It's amazing. But I just think about all the savings I'm having. And so I can work my way through it.
There's frugal and then there's that.
I call it coffee tea. But that's one of the big tips. And why do financial experts say it? Well, because it gets the majority of people's attention. Everybody has daily coffee. It's like a daily habit. So they mention it to jar people. Yeah. But in reality, what really works is working on those structural things. You can cut out coffee, but if you ignore the elephant in the room of the 2 giant car payments totaling $1,000 a month, you probably should work on that first. Yeah. You have bigger impact. All right, what's another tip?
Number 2 is create a budget and stick to it.
Yeah. Well, we say that all the time.
We do say that.
But the reality is most budgets fail. Why?
They're being too rigid or unrealistic.
Yeah, they lie to themselves. Let's just be blunt. We lie to ourselves. But what does work is using zero-based budgeting, which is what we talk about. Income minus outgo has to equal what?
Exactly 0.
Trademark. And so there's other rules that are out there like 50, 30, 20. We've talked about that. And there's the 80, 10, 10 one. But just following these that they're more nimble. They allow for life to happen within the month. And if it costs more here, make an adjustment here. Still make sure you preserve that give, save, invest, plan the rest. That zero-based budgeting, income minus outgo equals exactly zero. That's what works. Having a budget that is unrealistic means you've just wasted your time.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
What's another one?
Tip number 3 would be pay yourself first.
PYF. Pay yourself first. What does that mean? Let's talk about what that means first.
Often cited but ignored due to paycheck living. That's the reality. But I'm not really sure.
When you say pay yourself first, it's really saying, hey, before you go pay the bills or anything, make sure you put money in the investment account. Make sure you save some money. Because if you wait until the end of the budget to see if that fits, it'll get out competed by the urgency of now.
Yeah.
So the reality is, people say it a lot, but it's ignored because most people live paycheck to paycheck, and the urgency of the right now is yelling so loud that you can't even think about paying yourself first.
I feel like when I hear this, I think of, you're telling people to make sure they're putting money in there for the fun and the entertainment and the spending money, that kind of stuff.
No,
I'm like, I don't think we would have.
Pay yourself as in fund your future.
That's what
and so the big tip, what actually works is to automate this. Automate it before the money ever comes home.
Yeah.
Have the contribution withheld from your paycheck, dumped in your 401k or similar retirement account. Automate the extraction from your account over to your savings account. That's what works, because then you don't have to feel like it. It's automatic. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, there's a bunch of overhyped and misleading tips. Of course, one of them is invest in the latest blah, 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 which can be crypto, NFTs. Listen, while we speak, crypto is hustling. Bitcoin is over $100,000. It's pretty amazing. Who knows what it'll be when this releases this episode, but they are speculative and many times lead to big losses for beginners. And what we know, while all these things have come and most of them have gone, one thing works all the time. What's that?
Focusing on diversification or long-term investments like index funds or ETFs.
Yes, that's what works. Those are fantastic. They are investing in the entire economy, not in something that is new and unknown.
Yeah.
That's really big. And of course, let's talk about another one.
Yes. So make a budget spreadsheet.
Which sounds awesome. But in reality, I have to admit, not everyone loves their spreadsheet as much as I do. But what does work are apps like You Need a Budget, Every Dollar, and Fully Funded Life. And so I encourage you to use a tool that's available.
Yeah.
I encourage you to use a tool that will help you really focus on decisions instead of a math exercise.
Yeah.
That's the big key. And these tools are really templates that you don't have to type in formulas. You don't know how you don't have to make any of that stuff work. You just need to type in your numbers. It'll do the math for you, and you make good decisions.
Yep.
So let's give you some tips that actually work all the time.
Yep.
And one of them is building an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Works all the time.
Yep. It prevents financial disasters by reducing reliance on credit. You have that fund. You're not reliant on, oh no, something happens, now I got the charge card for it, or something, go get a loan or something like that.
Yes.
You have margin.
Emergency funds are like the secret sauce. This is the secret the government doesn't want you to know. Remember, it's the hack. It is the secret hack. I'm serious right now. An emergency fund will transform how you live and operate and function. And if you've never had that, if you've never had savings, I'm telling you right now, prioritize it and watch how your behavior changes. It's it's sensational. I still remember when I first had savings. Suddenly we look differently.
Yep.
Hey, another one is to start investing early. Why does starting investing early work?
Because it leverages the power of compound interest to grow your wealth.
So I want to talk here about the rule of 72.
Okay.
And this is how you can see how long it takes your money to double. So if your investment grows by 10% a year, whatever the growth rate, the 10%, make it a whole number, like 10, and divide it in the number 72. So 7.2. And that gives you an estimate, a really close approximation of how long it takes your money to double. So think about that. compound interest is miraculous. If you had $1,000 and you have 42 plus years for it, I'm choosing that carefully, for it to grow, and you don't contribute anything to it, and it gets 12% growth a year. Well, 12 goes into 72 how many times?
I know you're not
6.
asking me to do math.
6 times, right?
I cannot
So
do math
it
on the
takes 6
dot.
times for the money double. So 6 goes into 42 7 times. So your money will double 7 times in that 42-year period without contributing anything else to that 1,000. So let's double 1,000 7 times. You ready? Do it once. It's 2,000. Okay.
4.
Do it again. 4,000. Do it again.
8.
Do it again.
16.
Do it again.
24.
32.
32.
64. 128,000.
I hate when he makes me do math. I get
$128,000.
in hives.
$1,000 goes to 128,000 at 12% annual growth. The rule 72. Start investing early, because if you only have 6 years, well, it goes to 2,000, which isn't bad. Which would you rather have, 2,000 or 128,000?
Definitely 128.
There we go. And so let's talk about the reality of implementing this stuff. You know, tips fail for a reason. And one of the reasons is because we try to employ the tip that helps somebody else who has a totally different family situation, totally different income, totally different reality, right? And another reason they fail is because they get overwhelmed because they try to do too much at once. Don't you see that?
Yeah, just start with one. Let's just start with something.
One thing. Start contributing a retirement account.
Yeah.
Get that going. Put away the credit cards and stop swiping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then do a budget. Okay? So we're talking about discipline versus automation because, you know, when you rely solely on willpower, well, that'll fall down.
It will.
You know, I could sit here and say I'm only going to have one Cherry Coke Zero a day, but that's willpower. So I'm probably going to fail. So when I throw the 7th can in the trash, no, it's not 7. It might be 6, might be 2. I don't know. People tell me it's bad for me. And so here's how you make tips work. Give some tips on give some tips on making tips work.
All right. So the first one would be start small. So we talked about this, but focus on one change at a time so you don't get overwhelmed and then you don't feel like, oh, I can't do this, I'm just going to stop. You know, customize. So adapt advice to fit your lifestyle goal. I mean, we say this all the time, but personal finance is personal. Everybody's situation is different. Everyone's is unique. So you have to really customize it to you and your situation and how it's going to fit into your finances, your budget, your debt reduction, your investing, whatever it is you're trying to focus on. And then the last one would be automate. So removing that, I think I look at it as a friction with automatic savings, bill payments, investing, you can do this, all of that, but you're removing that out of it and you're automating it so it automatically does it every month. And if you have that cushion of your, you know, emergency fund, you have that 1 month saved or even the 3 months saved or 6 months, whatever it is, you have that margin. You don't have to worry about overdrafting, so you can automate these things.
Really good. And I think something that's really important about tips is let the tips build on previous tips. So the tip to build an emergency fund, then automation of your bill payments can be built on that foundation of an emergency fund. And then increasing that contribution that you're automatically contributing to an investment, well, then that can be built once you've already implemented it. You get a pay raise, you implement that. So just have your ears open for tips. And I challenge each of you who are listening, watching the podcast, really to review your financial habits and your behavior and think about the financial tip that you've heard recently that you've thought, hey, that's a really good idea. We really should implement it. And I encourage you to share with us your experience in implementing it. What did you learn about yourself? What was hard about implementing it? Where did you lack knowledge? How did you find answers? And one place that we know is it fully funded life is a great place to get lots of tips. Again, you can't deal with lots of tips at once, but that's why we provide the ladder. The fully funded life ladder puts the tips in order so that you can get clarity And it's important to understand that it is okay for you to tweak and discard tips that don't work for you. Like, we share the tips that we believe are good, that we know will work, but they don't work for everyone. And so we really do encourage you to check out our community at fullyfunded.life and to be able to be a part of a community of people that are diverse, as the East is from the West, the North is from the South, but we have a common thing that is a passion of ours, which is to be wise managers of the resources we have so that we can live a fully funded life. Any last thoughts you'd share on this episode?
I think the community aspect is so huge because you can ask people what they've seen that's worked with them, what they haven't seen. Maybe they have other tips that have worked. Also, we have coaches that could help, with this process. But I mean, I just think it's huge. Not every tip is going to work for your situation. So what can you start with? Start with one tip and, make that work for your budget, your family, your whatever it is you're trying to work on.
I think that's really good what you just said there, because when you're in a community, I receive stuff really good when somebody says, this is what worked for me.
Right.
Versus them saying, do this.
Yeah.
Right? And Thomas Edison said, I love to learn. I'm just not sure I like being taught. Because, the teacher's saying, write this. You have to write a composition. You have to write an assignment. But the fact is that you can explore and learn from others, especially when they say, hey, this is what worked for us. Mm-hmm. And in that, you're doing an assessment. Oh, Megan and Jordan, they got 3 little boys. Okay, well, maybe that applies to them because they have, younger kids. Mm. But for me, it's less relevant. However, I can take these 2 parts of that tip and apply them.
Yeah.
And in turn, sometimes when you share that, then you can get return advice that actually helps you. Yeah. And I think that's great. So, hey, hopefully you like this episode. It's helpful to understand it. And I think the biggest thing that I'll walk away with today is saying, feel free to be flexible and nimble and have those ears open, those eyes open for the tips so that you can implement them. Throw away, eat the meat, spit out the bones, and you will be on your way to living a fully funded life. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.
Thanks for watching. Hey, if you've gotten value from this, and I believe you have, click that subscribe button, click that thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with somebody. We want to make sure that this community grows so that we can all, together, live fully funded lives. Thanks for being a part of our family.